John Mortimer, in his own words. Desert Island Discs, BBC Radio 4, 20th of January, 1968.
John, where were you born?
I was born in London, in Hampstead.
What was your first ambition as a boy?
Well, I wanted to be a star of musical comedy. I wanted to be a kind of Noel Coward and sit down at a big white piano and play sophisticated songs. But as I couldn't sing a note at all...
and couldn't play the piano.
And couldn't play the piano. I must say that didn't deter me in my childhood when I entertained my parents with snatches of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire numbers, but it must have been agony for all concerned.
At Harrow, did you play in the school plays?
No, I did at a school called the Dragon School, which I went to before, and I gave my Richard II, and I was very happy. At Harrow, I found rather a boring school where no one really realised I was there, and so I left as soon as possible.
And what happened?
Well, then I went to Oxford for a very short while, and then I went into a thing called the Crown Film Unit. It was during the war.
How did you get in there?
Well, there was a gentleman who ran it at that time, who in fact, when I was a child, had seen me do a Punch and Judy show, so he thought I was just the man to write some epic film about the Western Desert, which is how impresarios' minds work.
Were all the films you did about the Western Desert?
Oh no, they were just in general about the war. But I started off with a very high-sounding title, which was an assistant director, which I thought was going to be very important. But in fact, all it entailed was making tea for the director and saying "quiet please" at the beginning of every shot. And when I said "quiet please," I said it in a very modest tone, with the result that everybody started to play poker and shout and go on strike. So I was a total fiasco as an assistant director. So they drew me aside and they said, "Well, you're such a nuisance as an assistant director. Would you like to be the scriptwriter?" they said. Because at that time the scriptwriter was Laurie Lee, and they said, well, Laurie had been very interested in the Spanish Civil War, which meant a lot to him, but he was really rather bored with the present conflict, and he couldn't rouse any enthusiasm about it.
Yes.
So he told me how to write film scripts, and I became the scriptwriter.
And you went on doing this till the end of the war?
Yes.
And after that?
Well, then after that I got a job teaching English to the models in Christian Dior in Paris, and the first novel I wrote, which was about the Crown Film Unit, a comic novel called Charade, came out. And it was rather successful. One of the reviewers said it was the best comic novel for 18 years, and I could never work out to this day what had happened 18 years before that.
And what about your bar exams?
Well, and then I did those, and became a barrister. I'd met my wife by that time.
Yes.
And so we got married about the time I got called to the bar.
Did things happen fairly quickly? You got some briefs?
Well, in a way, because my father was a lawyer, so he helped me, but also it was difficult to start with, very worrying. I used to go down to the East End and hang about in the free legal aid bureaus in the hope that a murderer dripping with blood would come running off the street and ask me to defend him. But no murderers ever came. Mainly puzzled Greek ladies who didn't know how to cope with the rent acts came, and people who wished to get rid of their elderly wives, and I was able to help them, and it did accumulate.
Now, you had written your first novel, so this was the pattern for some time, novels and legal work. When did you switch to writing plays?
Well, actually it all happened through the BBC. There was a lady called Nesta Payne, who was a BBC...
There is a lady called
There is a
Nesta
lady,
Payne.
a highly talented lady, who asked me to write a radio play. And I thought of the old barristers, seedy old barristers I saw at the London sessions, who hang about longing for likely criminals to pick them out. And I decided to write a little two-handed play about them for the radio, which was Doc Brief. And that was rather successful on the radio, and it won the Italia Prize and so on. So Michael Codron, who had a season starting at the Lyric Hammersmith, asked me to write another play to go with it. And he said if I didn't, he'd put on a play by UNESCO. Well, now, at that time, I thought UNESCO was something for educating children in Europe. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want anything to do with that in my theatre. So I wrote another play to go with it called What Shall We Tell Caroline? And they were done together in a season which, in fact, included Harold Pinter's first play.
Yes.
So that really I went into the theatre not only with a theatre waiting, but a date and actors and everything.
Fine. Those two short plays with which you started your dramatic career must have been real money spinners, John. I mean, the Doc Brief in particular. How many countries has it been played in now?
Well, I think it's been played in every country, really, in the communist world and in the allegedly free world. I heard last it was done by two real murderers in St.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?